The Las Vegas Raiders have wrapped up another disappointing season, as after starting out the year 6-3 and looking really good, they finished the year 8-8. Today, I wanted to talk about what's next for this team and what I would do to help improve this roster. Before we do get started though, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that like button as it really helps out the channel. If you guys are new and also enjoy the content on here, make sure to also subscribe so you do not miss out on any new videos. And we are also on the road to 500 subscribers, and once we hit our goal, I will do a reaction to my first 2 videos ever. So if you guys want to see that and enjoy the content on here, make sure to subscribe. And for the daily shout out, it goes to Everyday Sports Mania. The link to his channel will be in the description below, so go ahead and do me and him a favor by checking out his channel and subscribe. So with that being said, let's get this video started. And I want to start out by talking about the Raiders roster. And Derek Carr is the first player I want to talk about. And Derek Carr, he is not some elite quarterback, but he is still pretty good, and he had a career year this past year, with 4,103 passing yards, 27 passing touchdowns, and he completed 67% of his passes. Josh Jacobs is the next player I want to talk about, and Josh Jacobs is one of the best running backs in the league, and this year, he was really good, like how he was in 2019, as he had 1,065 rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns, and averaged 4 yards a carry. All I can say about Josh Jacobs is that he's an amazing player and he is going to be very good for this team in the future. Nelson Aglor is the next player I want to talk about. And I'm sure there's going to be someone in the comment section or someone thinking right now, oh, why give Nelson Aglor a mention? He's trash. Well, actually this past year, he was pretty solid, as he had 896 receiving yards and 8 receiving touchdowns, and he may be a guy that the Raiders want to bring back in free agency, and of course, more on that later. But Nelson Aglor, he's a pretty solid player, and hopefully he can keep this up. Hunter Renfro is the next player I want to talk about, and he's a pretty solid slot receiver, and while he is not amazing, he's still pretty solid, as I said before, as he had 656 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and caught 72% of his targets. Henry Ruggs is the next player I want to talk about, and Henry Ruggs unfortunately was disappointing, this past year, in his rookie year, and as many people expected really big things from him, as he only had 452 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. But he still does have time, and hopefully he is better next year and in the future. Darren Waller is the next player I want to talk about, and he was not a one-year wonder, as he is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. In this past year, he had 1,196 receiving yards, 9 receiving touchdowns, and caught 74% of his targets. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I want to talk about Max Crosby. Now, Max Crosby, well, he's a pretty good and solid pass rusher, along with being a really good run stopper, as he had 7 sacks and 32 pressures this past year. Cleland Pharrell is the next player I want to talk about. Now, he did only play 11 games this past year, but still, he has still been pretty disappointing and is kind of looking like a bust right now. This past year, he did just have 2 sacks and 21 pressures. I mean, the 11 games sure doesn't help, but he definitely has to pick things up, as right now, he is not looking like the player the Raiders thought they were getting. Corey Littleton is the next player I want to talk about, and Corey Littleton had a down year, but he's usually pretty good, but hopefully next year he does bounce back. Nick Kotowski is the next player I want to talk about, and he's a pretty good coverage linebacker, and while he is not like a Bobby Wagner, he is still pretty good, as he had 1 interception and 4 passes defended this past year. Trayvon Martin is the next player I want to talk about, and he had an up and down year. He did have 2 interceptions and 14 passes defended, but also, at the same time, he allowed 620 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he allowed a 62% completion percentage. And, well, that's not horrid, and, worst of all time. It's still not awesome, but I guess he's okay. Jonathan Abram is the final player I want to talk about. And this past year, after, finally having a healthy year, as in 2019, he hardly played due to an injury, well, he was okay. Yes, he had 2 interceptions and 6 passes defended this past year. And, they can use him better, but, hopefully he can improve. He can be a good player for this team in the future. And that is all I am gonna say for the Raiders roster. Now, the Raiders offensively were pretty good. Derek Carr had a career year, and they were just good offensively. They were the 10th best offense overall, the 7th best passing offense, and the 14th best rushing offense. And they scored 27 points per game. However, their defense was horrible. Yeah, it was just horrible. It was really bad. They ranked 30th overall as a unit, were 26th in passing defense, 24th in rushing defense, and gave up the 3rd most points per game as a unit at 29.9 points per game. And that brings me to a mini rant on Derek Carr and the Raiders. A lot of people have pointed the blame to Derek Carr as, the Raiders, when the Raiders do struggle. A lot of people do point to Derek Carr. Now, as I said before, he is not elite, so I guess you could say that doesn't exactly help. And while the guy does have his bad games, he is not the issue with Las Vegas. And of course, as I said before, him being elite doesn't exactly help, but at the same time, he had a career year and he is still a pretty good and solid quarterback, and he's not exactly that bad like a lot of people love to paint him out to be. He is pretty good. The defense is easily the biggest issue with Las Vegas. I've seen some people, especially like Raiders reporters, like the so-called experts who work for a Raiders website fan page, or you know what I'm talking about. Those Raiders who live in I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Those reporters suggesting that they trade for Deshaun Watson, and no, they shouldn't do that. And I know you might call me crazy, but the thing is, Deshaun Watson, while he is great, they will have to give up a lot of assets, and that would not fix their defense at all. If they were to trade for Deshaun Watson, first off, he'd take up a lot of cap room. Next, well, he would gut them of a ton of draft assets, as it's going to take a lot to get Deshaun Watson. And they could use those draft assets to help improve their defense. And the thing is, when you trade for Deshaun Watson, I mean, this is kind of on the Deshaun Watson stuff and all, but when you trade for him, unless you really need a quarterback, I mean, I don't think you should. If you need a quarterback, go ahead and try to make a run at him. But if you don't, it's not your biggest need, don't exactly go for Deshaun Watson. And I mean, that might sound weird not trade for Deshaun Watson, but I mean, the Raiders don't really need a quarterback, okay? They need to improve their defense. I would not give up on Derek Carr unless you want to tank and start a rebuild, which, I mean, okay, if you want to do that, go ahead. But this roster does, they have a good enough roster to win now. Now, getting to the free agent part, they will not have a lot of important free agents to bring back, but I would probably bring back Nelson Aglor, as he was pretty good for the Raiders this past year. Daniel Carlson I would also bring back, as he's pretty good, and possibly Takarkis McKinley, however you say his name, Tack McKinley. Yeah, if I was Las Vegas, I would definitely bring back Nelson Aglor, Daniel Carlson, and possibly Tack McKinley. They also don't have a ton of cap space right now, but if they were to restructure some deals like Marcus Mariota and possibly trade him, and Corey Littleton, and cut Tyrell Williams, and cut LaMarcus Joyner, who was pretty bad this year, they can get to $17 million in cap space, which is actually, it's okay. And in free agency, they should do anything they can to improve that defense. Now, for the free agents, I would go after guys like Leonard Williams, Anthony Harris, and William Jackson, along with Xavier Rhodes and JJ Watt, who can also, go after defensive guys. Yannick Ngake, however you say his name, Marcus May, Marcus Williams, Troy Hill, Mike Hilton, John Johnson, Ronald Darby, and Mike Hilton are all pretty good, options. Those are guys I'd pursue, and of course, you will not get all of you won't get all of them, but I would definitely go after them. And if they can, pick up at least 2 or 3 of these guys, they could easily boost this defense, as they do have some decent, parts already in Max Crosby, who's pretty good, Jonathan Abrams, okay, Corey Littleton, a lot of the guys I did mention in the roster section, they do have some solid pieces. However, they can easily add to the defense. Now, they should easily look to improve the defense in the offseason, as I said before. Restructure guys, cut guys, sign players, and they should also use the draft to improve this team. And of course, as I said before, the defense is what they should address in the draft. They will own the 17th pick, and some targets that, guys they could target could be someone like Gregory Rousseau, Jeremiah Owusu-Koroma, JC Horn, and maybe Christian Barmore. But those are, I really have like, I think the top 3 are probably the best options, but I would really improve the defense. And to really sum up what I would do if I'm the Raiders and really what's next for them and what they should do, well, they need to improve their defense, as they really do have a good enough roster to win right now. They really should not, I wouldn't give up on Derek Carr unless you want to start a rebuild, but Derek Carr is not the issue. Their offense is good, as they have a solid quarterback, a really good running back, some pretty solid running back weapons, including one of the best tight ends in the NFL. All they need is just at least an average defense, and if they have just an average defense, they can easily be a playoff team. They are very close to being, they're like just really close to being a playoff team. And with that being said though, that will be the end of today's video. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that like button, as it really helps out the channel. Subscribe if you guys are new and enjoy the content on here, so you do not miss out on any new videos. And we are also on the road to 500 subscribers. Once we hit 500, as a special, I will react to my first 2 videos ever. So if you guys want to see that and enjoy the content on here, make sure to subscribe. And of course, go ahead and check out Everyday Sports Mania. The link to his channel is in the description below. With that being said though, I'm out, you guys.